Hi there, and welcome to the very first episode of Chaplains ListeningIN, Clinical Pastoral Education International's video journal. I'm Krista Argyropoulos, and I'm thrilled to have you join us as we explore the insights, stories, and experiences that shape the lives and work of chaplains across the globe. For our first episode, we have a special guest, Dr. Kay Myers. Dr. Myers is a seasoned expert in the field of pastoral care. She's a retired director of pastoral care, and she's currently a dedicated supervisor educator with CPEI. And she also serves as chair of the Committee of Oversight, Review, and Effectiveness, guiding the standards and quality of CPEI's programs. However, in today's conversation, what started as a discussion about her 3 impactful books, all of which are now on Amazon, by the way, our conversation turned into something much more broader, and that was her heartfelt exploration of her passion for clinical chaplaincy education and training. Kay delves into the intricate process of developing students' skills and her abilities. She shares from her invaluable wisdom and experiences, and also tells us about her journey as a writer and what brought her to where she is today. So without further ado, let's dive into our conversation with Dr. Kay Myers, and I hope you find it as inspiring and as enlightening as I did. Thank you.
My background is 45 years in ministry. There wasn't a plan B. I will say a couple of things like this. Way back when I graduated from a Bible college in my undergraduate, I was the only female in the Bible ministerial program, and I was not allowed to take a church administration course because I would never need it. And then I went on, did a year at a church and went on to seminary. And the seminary that I went to had just opened its Master of Divinity program 3 years earlier. And again, I was the only woman in my class of Master of Divinity. So that's a little bit of the early days. And the way I kind of moved into pastoral care and counseling was there were a few people who were wanting to promote women in ministry. And when I was graduating from seminary, I was offered this teeny little church to pastor. And this is the absolute truth. I panicked and I went to CPE. And that became, and I went down that course ever since.
I wrote a story, and I did. Now, you are a PhD. What was your dissertation on?
My dissertation is this women's spirituality as a feminist in the Christian tradition.
Did it raise a few eyebrows?
It did 2 things. I had 2 things that happened. I was very fortunate, well, because of the subject matter and the research style that I was doing. I had 2 academic advisors, both very supportive. They were just very supporting, seeing new work go forward. Their own backgrounds and their own beliefs were very different, or didn't really need to connect in, but they wanted to see new work go forward. And when I defended my dissertation, it's in a committee of 6 people, and it's required that you have some at least one or two people from outside your college sit on that committee when for defending the dissertation. And I had one person who was openly hostile to me, openly hostile. Yeah. Mhm.
How did you deal with that?
But um, I I addressed the issues that were presented to me, and one of the things was, how could you be working as a feminist within religion? And I said back, how can you be working as a feminist within the academy? I mean, you can't get away from issues. It isn't the institution, it's systemic. And so I engaged the issues with her and felt that I had done a solid piece of work. Fortunately, my defense was approved, and I received the PhD.
Okay, so it sounds like a pretty rich background and everything, and you've been retired for the past 4 years. Well,
Yes.
how did you get into writing? What prompted you to become an author?
When I retired, I did not walk away, I limped away. I was so tired. I was so depleted um, that it took 6 months for me to regain um, a sense of being back again, back with myself again. Um, my first goal when I retired was to learn to sleep. And after about 6 months, I was actually sleeping through the night. Um, I had disruptive sleep, which is a symptom of anxiety and depression. And after 6 months, I mean, it was, very situational. And after 6 months, I was starting to feel like me again. In fact, I was just starting to feel again. So along the way, I was writing uh, different experiences. I have written throughout my whole career. I mean, it's, sermons. I think I wrote every sermon I ever gave. Um, I have written many didactics. I have written lots of materials for publication and articles and things like that. But during those 6 months and then a little bit past that, I was just writing whatever was there to write. I mean, that was it. And then one day I started a chapter. And I had been, let's see, the BBC has a program called Maestro, and I had listened to some of their articles and on writing. And one day I said, I wrote a chapter. Then I had heard of this. I had others in, the things like the online classes or programs that I had been listening to talk about this, in which while you're writing, there comes a point where my intention was to take the story in one direction. And it was very clear to me that that was not the direction it was going to go. I mean, it just wasn't going to be like that. And that led to the second chapter. And in time, I just kept writing a chapter and a chapter and a chapter. And after a while, I had a novel, and that's how I did it. Um, they say, write what you know. I wrote about a woman minister in a very small congregation. It's an unremarkable mid-sized town with an unremarkable church and an unremarkable pastor who learned to do remarkable things. And so I wrote what I know. I have always gravitated to activities that are kind of solitude. So this was just a real good fit for me. I've did horseback riding, gardening, cooking. Some of these can be more interactive, but they're kind of solitary things. And this was just one more that I picked up, along with, like I said, I've written my entire career. So I wrote one book, and I really wanted to write a book on pastoral care, but I was still too depleted to do that. Critical thinking was just too heavy of a lift yet to do. So I wrote a sequel to the novel that I wrote, and pretty much in the same manner. I had learned a whole lot. I had joined a writing group that meets every other week. Tremendous resource to me. Was able to put my chapters out there and get other people's feedback with them. And at the end of writing the sequel to the novel, my second book, I was ready to write the book on pastoral care. And then I wrote a book, because what I really wanted to write in that regard was I wanted to write a book on how to skillfully use the tool of the verbatim. When I was planning on writing it, I did some search online, and I did not locate one written thing dedicated to the verbatim. And so I wrote a book on it.
That's excellent. And I've seen verbatims used a lot, like in clinical training and education by students. Have you gotten any feedback from any supervisors, supervisor educators, or anybody using those books in their practice?
Well, what I have done was, before I published, I sent it to 4 veteran CPE supervisors and asked if they would read it and give me their feedback. And I give them mention in my acknowledgement. Ed Outlaw, Ed gave me a lot of time, which I'm very appreciative to. Pat Davis, he gave me some good feedback. Patan, who is still at the location where I retired, he gave me some great feedback. Really gave me some ideas of things that could enhance it. And Peter Gole, he also gave me some wonderful feedback. So that was, I really wanted to get some subject matter experts to read through it and tell me, they don't have to agree with it, but I wanted to know if it had substance. And I got very good feedback. And after doing a little bit more work on it, that I moved it forward and published it. Mainly because I felt like I had something to say. I wanted to get it down. If I didn't write it down, it wouldn't be there. It's going to disappear. And then the next step for me was to get it in form so that I can take it on to the October conference. That's the game plan.
Awesome. So your last book isn't in print yet, is that correct? So it'll be coming out.
My sequel is not in print yet. I should be getting that up soon. So if I can just clear a couple of days, I'll get it up. But I had other things. It's one of the planes on the runway. It's moving up to the front of the line, and soon it'll be there for takeoff.
Got it. Got it. So what are the books that what are your titles that you've got in print now?
The first book that I have in print, it's the first novel I wrote, and that's called The Bridge, A Spiritual Journey Through Coffee. Now, everybody scratches their head, and I promise you, if you read the book, it will make sense. So that was the first book. The other book that I have in print is the verbatim, The Story of Pastoral Care. And now that's also in print, and both of them are up on Amazon. And the third book that's inching its way to the front for takeoff is called Kenyan Coffee.
Okay, I found you here. I was looking under K. Myers on Amazon, but I found you under
GK.
Yeah, GK Myers. So I'd forgotten about the G in
Yeah.
front of your name. So all right. So The Bridge, A Spiritual Journey Through Coffee. And yeah, it's yeah, and I see that if you've got Kindle Edition Unlimited right now, you've checked that off as an author. So that would be free for me to read. I'm a member of that. I'm a huge Kindle fan.
I
And
am too. But in terms of the book and how I see it, here's a couple of the premises that I work off of. Number one, the first there's two chapters in this book in which I outline a curriculum for clinical level pastoral care skills. And these are real skills that can be demonstrated. And so that's my first premise in the book is there needs to be a skill set that is being taught. So in moving students forward in developing clinical level skill in pastoral care, we want to be able to define what is that skill and what is that skill set and how to become skillful in it. So in the next chapter, on chapter 4, which is, I turned that into a presentation for the October, is there are 3 parts to a pastoral care visit, beginning, middle, and end. Each one has an objective, knowing how to see if that objective has been met in each part of these in the visit, and learning how to identify where the student is coming up to what is called the problem in learning and the learning problem. And it is at that point that there needs to be a focus discussion about how the student understands what their view is, how it was for them to continue using the skills that have been provided. Because it's at that point that the student is being asked to make a in-depth look at their emotional involvement with material. And it's guided in how to help a student engage in that emotional involvement with material. The emotional involvement is basically the software that is running the pastoral care visit. And so if we can help a student engage their emotional issues of helping their patient be the one who is in charge of the content, and the student is the guardian of the process, if they will allow that to happen, they will engage, they will be dealing with issues that can be uncomfortable, painful, and often it will help raise issues that have not been resolved for themselves. And this is their opportunity to explore that. As they become more integrated with their own story and their own emotional life, they can be more open to what that patient's story is presenting. They don't have to keep it in their safe zone. They can kind of let go and let the process happen. So that's what I put into chapter 4, is how to engage that. And then the last part, for ending a visit, I talk about when the work has been done in a visit, it is the chaplain's job to learn to close that visit down. And that can be a struggle because it feels so good. And there's been empathy, there's been emotional connection, and learning to bring that to closure. And it's really the skills of saying to the patient, thank you and goodbye. And that, again, often raises emotional issues for the student of bringing closure to a relationship. So that's what I've worked on in creating this book, is how to work with those issues. And I will say it also this way. I know I was just like a pinball machine early as a CPE supervisor, really not knowing what I was trying to accomplish in the verbatim seminars. And I had to learn how to keep that conversation on track for education in pastoral care and counseling. There's lots of invitations to run all over the place, but it's the supervisor's job to know how to keep that on track. And so I feel like after 40 some years, I had something to say and some skills to impart and some guidance to give. And I'm hoping that this will benefit anyone who is interested in learning how to use the verbatim in a skillful, educational way for clinical level spiritual care.
Here. So what would you want somebody to know about your books? Just, if somebody sees these sitting on a table, say I walk into Barnes and Noble and I see your books sitting on a table and I pick one up, what would you want me to know about your books?
What I'm really wanting to communicate is that everybody has a spirituality. And the way in which we engage one another, the way in which we are in community with one another, is the ground in which that spirituality is going to be. Let me back up a little bit. There's a point in the book in which the main character gives this, in which she talks about the sower and the seed, and that the community is the ground, but each person's spirituality is the seed. Everybody has a spirituality. And I believe that people's spirituality will move forward, grow, develop 20, 40, 100-fold. But it must be in a context in which people are truly heard and engaged in authentically, without judgment, but also with a sense of accountability. Now, these aren't simple things, but that's what I want each one of my books, whether it's a story, whether it's a book on pastoral care, to really communicate, to provide people with the resources and the relationships that helps that spirituality blossom.
So, Kay, thank you again for meeting with me today and for talking with me about this. And I really appreciate it. I've learned more about you. I've never really sat down and talked with you or anything.
No.
So maybe we'll have that opportunity. All right. Well, have a
Mhm.
great rest of your day. And thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it.
Okay, talk to you again soon. Take
Take
good
care.
care.